Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's episode of Arrow, and that ending was nuts. So basically, Roy was like the red herring in this episode. He was the one who fell on the sword for Oliver and pretended to be the Arrow, and he felt like he was getting some, I guess a little bit of retribution, or like he just felt like he had killed a police officer when he was on the Mirakuru drug, and this was his way of sort of dealing with all of that and turning himself in made him actually feel good for a change and not like a horrible human being. But at the end, when he got stabbed in the prison, for some reason I was like, yeah, that didn't really seem like it really happened. And I was like, unless I see a dead body, I'm not buying it. So the fact that he showed up in pretty much the next scene, I was like, okay, good, not surprised. But then when Ra's al Ghul shows up at Thea's house and then basically takes her out, I was like, what? And I should have known because when Malcolm Merlin visited Oliver earlier in the episode and he was all like, Roz is gonna do whatever it takes. He's already killing people, but he hasn't killed anybody that you care about, basically recently, and that was the red flag that obviously somebody close to Oliver was going to die. So we were to assume that it was Roy when really it's Thea. Now I'm really shocked because as much as I thought Thea has improved over the last two seasons in this season, she's been a fighting machine. She was with her dad. She turned on her dad, all this kind of stuff. She hasn't grated on my nerves, but still I always found her a very whiny character. But to see her take her demise like that, what? So Roz said something to her like at the end when he's like stabs her, he says something like forgive me in your resurrection or something. So in my mind I'm thinking, does this have to do with is it the Lazarus pit or whatever, where when what's his name Roz put his hand in the water, it turned and it healed him? Will he be able to will Oliver take Thea there to heal her? Like, I have no idea. Can you bring the dead back to life? I don't know. But that ending was sick. I was like, wow. And it was cool to see, Thea's stunt double do all those fighting scenes. It was actually pretty cool for the short period of time that it lasted. But wow, I did not see Thea's death coming like that. Of course, Quentin Lance has been trying to prove that Oliver is actually the Arrow, and he's right, but he's just not doing a good job of it. And even Laurel steps in and is like, "Look, Dad, you suck," and the DA is dropping all the charges because Roy is confessing to this crime. But we all know that that was all just so that they could kill him, kill Roy. Felicity and Diggle had put this plan with Roy in place that he would fake confession, get into prison, he would get stabbed, they would think he's dead, and then the Arrow would be dead. So pretty good, but I think, even Oliver didn't know what the heck was going on. So I thought that was a pretty good reveal. And other stuff that was going on in this episode was the Felicity and Ray stuff. Now, here's the thing that I felt a little awkward or didn't feel in place. So, if you watch The Flash, which I do, they meaning Felicity and Ray showed up on The Flash in yesterday's episode, and at no point in that episode were they awkward around each other. Did it seem like he was waiting for an answer for the fact that he told Felicity that he loved her in the last episode of Arrow. So in this episode, we started off and he's all like, yeah, I mentioned that I love you, but it was a lowercase L, and then they're really awkward, and she's kind of looking at him like, but on that episode, they were fine. They went out on a double date. It was like there was no hint that there was any awkwardness between the two of them from the fact that she didn't repeat that she loved him in the Arrow. So that continuity felt a little bit off. So then to see him, really like dealing with it in this episode just felt a little bit weird. But then Felicity kept bringing up stuff about Cisco and about Barry and about Dr. Wells in this episode. So it's like, well, yeah, so clearly they've been there and they're back, but it just seemed a little disjointed to me. I don't know. What do you think? Like, if you watch The Flash and you watch the Arrow episode, did it feel like a little out of place that they're bringing up the fact that she didn't say anything that about I love you, but yet in that episode they were totally fine. It just felt weird. And I know that obviously there's some people that might not watch, who watch Arrow, that might not watch The Flash, so they're only picking it up from this show, but it just feels weird. If you're going to do a crossover, then keep that thread consistent, you know what I mean? Anyways, so fine, they did all this stuff. Ray got to use his suit, and Oliver had to step back from being out on the streets because he couldn't be seen as the Arrow when Roy has confessed to being the Arrow. So he had to let others step up and do their part. So Ray put on the suit, and he was fighting the metahuman that was in this episode, and he was basically, getting his butt whooped. And then by the second time he went to battle the metahuman, Oliver was pretty much like his avatar, and he was like, doing all the things to help protect Ray from this crazy metahuman, and ultimately it works, and they end up, defeating him. And what was cute was at the end, Ray takes the metahuman back to Star's lab, and we see him talking with Cisco because we all know that they hit it off in the Flash episode, and so they're talking, and then they name the metahuman and all this, and then Cisco realizes that the metahuman was in Starling City and not in Central City, so he wasn't in Central City when the particle accelerator went off, but so Cisco's wondering, how is he a metahuman? So that's sort of how that thread ends. So, does this mean that people that weren't directly in Central City were affected by the when the particle accelerator went off? That's going to be interesting, because then who knows who else was affected by this. So yeah, I thought that was interesting. And then of course, Felicity had all of her scenes with Oliver. She's the one that gets through to him when Oliver's ready to go to the prison to try to get Roy out. But obviously Felicity and Diggle knew what the plan was, and they had to try to talk Oliver down from going there and ruining everything. And so of course she has that conversation with him, and then she has another one at the end of the episode where she's like, you love all these people, but what you have to realize is that other people love you. And then Roy sees this, he gets a little bit or Ray sees this and gets a little bit, jealous or whatever. So, I'm glad that they're continuing the Felicity and Ray storyline, because I kind of like it, as opposed to, I'm going a little off topic here, but as opposed to on The Flash, where we never really saw Iris and Eddie get together. We're just told that they're in this relationship, that they love each other, but we don't really see it or feel it. At least with this, I feel like, okay, I saw, the relationship of Ray and Felicity come together. So it feels like I can get on board with it. And it feels like, yes, sure, she can be in this relationship and be happy, even though technically she's in love with Oliver. And, I'm fine with this playing out, as long as it doesn't get so like, oh, we all love you, Oliver, like every episode. If you're with Ray, be with Ray. Don't do all this blinking and batting your eyes at Oliver stuff, because that gets annoying. So we also had some flashbacks to Hong Kong, and I like the fact that all the people that Oliver and Maseo and Tatsu thought were part of Argus weren't, and that actually Amanda had been held hostage, was being held captive by these people, and she was even shot or stabbed or something, and she lets Oliver go. So I like that at least it wasn't just that Amanda's been this horrible person this whole time and that she's tracking down Oliver and trying to kill him. It's more that she has no control over anything that's going on right now because she was being held captive. So they got this serum that can help prevent millions of people being killed. And I don't know, the flashbacks in this episode weren't really very, I don't know, they were kind of okay. I liked the Amanda Waller stuff, but everything else I was like, meh, whatever. I liked last week's episode flashbacks better when we got introduced to Shadow's sister. I thought those were more intriguing. This one was a little bit dull. So yes, back to Starling City and what is going to happen when Oliver finds out that his sister has been killed by Ra's al Ghul. I mean, the ish is going to hit the fan, and I just can't wait. Wow, it's going to be crazy. Yeah, I enjoyed all the stuff that went down in this episode with Oliver and Ray, or Ray and Roy, and obviously the stuff with Ra's al Ghul. All that stuff worked for me. The stuff with the flashbacks were a little bit dull for me in this episode, but you can't win them all. Okay, guys, let me know what you thought of this week's episode. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you next week.